Here we go. All right. Thank you so much for
Awesome.
joining us this morning at the Evaluation Committee meeting. And Caitlin, I see that you've already put the agenda up. I'm going to go ahead and let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here. This February meeting, if you remember last time, we started looking at like what would a flow of themes be if we looked at the pace of how these meetings land. So I referred back to that, and we kind of said, since it's this top of the calendar year, maybe, and we've just kind of gone through all of the processes with the local evaluation, statewide survey, APR data, and all of that, that it would be just kind of a good reset or evaluation of like the needs in any of your schools and organizations to identify how this committee can then kick off the year and support. So that's kind of really just the wide open way that I think we can have discussion today, is identifying how those most recent reporting things have gone for you all and what needs maybe popped up during those times. So I have like examples in here. And Vic, you might even have a great perspective of what you've seen as things have come in. But the collection for new GEPRA measures, this is our first go at it. APRs closed, local evaluations and statewide surveys, everything's probably wrapped up for the most part. So just anyone have any feedback on how different things went this past year?
Well, we got up to 100% on the GEPRA, although I had to go in and massage the data a little bit. The way that it's put in is a little bit tricky, because when you go to the outcomes, you have to actually put in a 0 if you can't put in data. And if you forget to put in the zeros, it's not going to give you credit. And we had a few of those in there where you didn't get credit for submitting your outcomes. So, I mean, this is brand new, and, we're learning things about it. And so we'll have some tips for you for next time around. Other than that, it's been a pretty good process. Keep in mind, the APR, I cannot change the date. I've got a couple emails, people say, can I have an extension? Can't do it on the federal. And in fact, if you don't put in your data, that's non-compliance, because they expect us to get 100%. Imagine that. But things that you can get an extension on is your local evaluation. And we even extended the statewide survey an extra week this year because somebody asked. So if it's us, we can do some accommodation for your needs, but the feds, they're pretty inflexible.
I think those couple of things you said, like making sure zeros are in for the data you don't have or don't enter, and no extensions on this federal date, is helpful for the committee guide, just to have 100% clarity on anyone who's gonna be starting this process for the first time. So I want to add some of those notes into the committee guide, because that's kind of the second thing we can look at today. Anyone else have any challenges or run into anything as you went along these processes? It wasn't drastically different, I don't think, from the GEPRA really being the new process for us this year.
I have a comment.
Great, thanks.
So with the GEPRA measure 4 regarding the in-school suspensions, they don't do that so much in Des Moines. So our data people did level 2s, which is what they would utilize more across the board. Is there something that, that's okay to do? I would take it, because that's the only data we could get that would be comparable.
Sure. And, I think with every one of those, there was a little comment box that you could put in some comments.
Yes, and I did add that, so I
Okay.
just wanted to make sure that was okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right, great.
Thank you for asking for that clarity. I noticed personally for myself, like I did go back to our spreadsheet that we used for 21, that this committee kind of has tweaked along the way. I found some personal changes I was making as I was using it, adding in like some totals, because then I could use it for the local evaluation. I don't think that the cycle or the window before the outcomes, I don't know if it's fully up to date for how that ended up looking with staff hours and the activities. So I think that could be something that is just another tweak and improvement upon, just making that tool a little bit more refined as we enter another year of starting to use that and collecting data in it.
Mhm.
Anyone else have any specific comments about that APR spreadsheet tool? No. Okay.
I have a comment on the measures, for the reading and math. What they've done is they're taking a small subset. Instead of saying, give us the reading scores for all the kids, they're just taking a little sample. So this means for your local objective, and I would actually encourage you to do this, you could provide the reading and math progress for all the kids. Since we're not reporting them in the APR, we're just doing a little, sample. And that's going to be better quality data than, just asking, how many parents completed a survey on satisfaction. The actual progress we're making with reading and math being, providing a more comprehensive picture. That's something that would be beneficial to add to your local evaluations in the future.
That is interesting. I had like local objectives as just, I had like kind of like a list of things that I was wanting to do, at least like a temperature check of like, did this go well? Is this an area that you have struggled in? Like an informal survey, and local objectives was one.
Mhm.
Because I think with the GEPRA measures and the encouragement to reduce local objectives to, was it fewer than 5 this go around, or whatever the local evaluation said?
Yep.
So.
Well, we've had some of them that turned in with 30 local
Yeah, I mean,
objectives.
this is the first time we've revised ours in quite a while, and we had probably 8 or something like that, and so reducing it to 4 is what we did, but there was still. So the duplication between the GEPRA measures is a good clarifier that if it's to expand that age grade level. Because we had one that I think I'm going to revise even for next year, because it was kind of duplicative of the engagement and learning, the teacher survey measure. It just roped in the kindergartners, but that's less of a, like the 4th through 5th and the reading and math, that one's very narrow as far as a subset and capturing your full age ranges. Did anyone else have observations of how their local objectives looked this year, if you ended up changing them due to GEPRA measures or otherwise? Or need any help moving forward with different local objectives?
That's Lynn in Stone Lake. Sorry, dealing with a little bit of voice thing. One of the things in the local objectives, it specifically says that since GEPRA discusses math and reading, don't include them. So I think
we're going
for
to take
next
that
year,
out.
we need to clarify that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was something that when we realized with the new GEPRAs being so specific, that it would be a good thing to, just include all the kids. So I'm glad you made that point, yeah. As we read through the local objectives and we talk about what needs to change in the template for next year.
Yeah.
I had one more comment about the state survey. It still references regular attendees less than 30 days, more than 30 days.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yep, we need to change that.
So
Heidi, you might want to make a note of that.
I forgot I'm still sharing
10
my,
and 11.
what was that, Lynn?
Questions 10 and 11.
I went back to this committee guide that I don't know, I hope you guys are seeing it. When we met last time, I think we moved around some things, but we did say like specifically this committee has had a really in-depth role in looking at that survey and making tweaks. So that was kind of bookmarked for next month's or April's time, but I that you have number 10 and number 11 identified. That's for sure something we can go back to. Thank you, Lynn. Anyone else with, I don't know, we can save some things for that discussion or have it really pulled up and start dissecting things. But if you have any other just observations around the statewide survey, please share.
This
Now,
is a
if you can.
process. So, we try our best to get everything right the first time, but we always, we're going to find a few things here and there. And that's just because we're human. And that's why this committee is so valuable. And I really appreciate your input so that we can keep improving.
I think one of the things, just going back, I know we report on the previous year, but sometimes on all the different data we do, I've noticed sometimes the dates aren't consistent, especially for summer. It can get confusing because we're reporting so far ahead of when we actually did summer. And at the last directors meeting, I know somebody asked the question, they were a new grantee this year, and they asked, do I need to still do the report? And the answer was yes, but then I think that brought on confusion because they would be reporting on a year that they didn't have 21st century grant. So maybe just double checking as we're putting out all these different data sets that we're being consistent and just reminding people, especially new grantees, of the exact dates for summer and school year, and if they are required to fill it out that year or not.
That's a good point. Yep.
Okay, so some of the other areas, like just informal survey, I think between who's here, and then maybe we can do a more formal survey. We've done one in the past of like these just larger buckets of evaluation areas, to see how they're going, what are the areas that pop up as maybe needing some more support. So we've kind of covered GEPRA measures, somewhat of the statewide survey, local objectives, other areas like just kind of basically the teacher survey. That one was shared as a resource. So I just wanted to check in to make sure we've tweaked that language in there before to kind of make sure that the piece about or maintaining at a high level, like, yes, they either improved or maintained at a high level so that it didn't end up with a bunch of kind of non-improvement rated students. So I did that one run smoothly for people that use the language that we prepared in this committee. On my end, I think it did. I just want to make sure we can look at that again and tweak any language there for that teacher survey. Thumbs up on the screen if it went well. Great. Okay. Okay. EPR, we kind of went through And then I was trying to think of the buckets that are kind of just in the checklist in our local evaluations too. Anecdotal data, like, I'm just gonna list off a bunch, and then if you have one that like triggers a idea in your head of an area that you have need, then we can just discuss this further. Anecdotal data, that one's kind of a large chunk in our local evaluation. So when it comes to capturing more story-based things, best practices, quotes, any of that area of evaluation. Partner tracking, I feel like that one's come up before in sustainability conversations as well, when we talk about in-kind contributions and calculating those. Wait, I think I'm still sharing my screen, so I also have that survey that was done in the past. Are you seeing a chart of a survey result somewhat? Yeah, okay. So this was done, I can't even remember if it was like 2019 or 2020, whenever we did this kind of in preparation for a impact conference. So this was the order from highest rated, like need to lowest of different things. We had quite a few number of people responding, but probably not every grantee. So GAPRA measures was the top one, transitioning to those. Just overall organization and managing data. That I feel like is why we focus so much on that 21 APR spreadsheet. Local objectives, so we've touched on that. These ones are all kind of, the next few are tied for some level of having interest in supporting these areas. Partner data, like I mentioned, assessment tools. So if you're doing any, we're an organizational, community-based organization, so we're not at all tied to the district assessments, so we have to request all that data. So we do our own internal stuff if that's an area of interest or discussion. Do any of those, as I have them on the screen, pop out as something that you would want to focus on moving forward? Be okay with silence for just a little bit longer if you want to think about it. Okay, I think I will probably encourage this to go out again as a survey so that people can take it and consider it in their own time and space, and also to rope in some others who might not be on this call. Just because I mean, it might not change, but of course, this might just be an annual process that would be helpful. So that can be a follow-up to do on my end. For maybe once we send out the notes, I can just make a copy of this one and make it really simple to just send out again.
So Caitlin, how do you decimate this survey? Because I think there would be a lot of sites interested in having that. You give it to everybody 21st Century? Is it on the website? How would we have access to that?
This last time we did this is the first time, and I think it was sent out just via the Iowa After School network, whether it went to the full evaluation or full grantee network, which is the evaluation committee. I'm not positive.
Okay.
But I think that I'll ask that of Heidi and her folks at Iowa After School Alliance to share that out. And then I don't know that we would want it. It's a good point though about the website. I don't know that, because they would probably start and end and close.
Right.
So we might just want to send it out via email, I think.
Okay.
Thank you for your question.
You're welcome.
Okay. So I don't have anything else on just like annual needs. I think you know, we can, in the meantime, between now and April, maybe we'll have the results by then and have a little bit more direction led by the survey of ideas and things we can develop or work on as a committee, but also it's fine if we're just here to identify these tweaks every time, like this statewide survey, having those processes, consistency in the school year that Amy brought up. So it's fine if we don't develop these brand new resources and tools every single year. I'm fine with that at least. Okay. So if I go back to the agenda, I think the really last thing was, again, the committee guide, which is what I had pulled up as well. This, again, as a reminder, is just something a few years ago I brought up as a great idea for each committee to kind of develop a guide of resources, kind of just to give you the rundown of what each committee is all about and have ongoing support and resources for. So right now, it's still a work in progress, has been over the last several years. It's never been really dedicated focus for myself or for this group, which has been a slow rolling train. So there's just a summary page about the mission and goals of the committee and kind of what this committee strives for. So that was also kind of informed from the survey. So this could evolve as the survey identifies different types of focus that people are in need of. But right now it's just kind of having the support of Vic and the requirements of the grants that are for evaluation and understanding what these requirements are. Any changes that happened when GEPRA measures changed and rolled out, that was the big focus of this committee. Getting the input and feedback to tweak things like the templates that we use, and just kind of troubleshooting on a lot of different areas. So that is the gist of that summary page. This is where we've started to outline kind of what the working items might be of this committee, having the month by month focus areas. So as of now, this is how we have it kind of laid out. Just more guidance about what to expect of the committee. And then this is where it's kind of left off of the really laying out clear information that is helpful to just have as a informational piece. So 21 APR tips and tricks. I think having some of the things that Vic, you said you've learned and have thought about putting out there as tips, like there are no extensions, being really clear on that for the 21 APR, having to enter zeros to have your data show as completed. That's where I think this stuff is helpful, and hopefully we don't have drastic changes all the time to have to update it in great detail. But there's some dates in there anyway. So then local evaluation, same kind of thing. And then just general timelines. And then this is where it's a real draft format right now, is the best practice guides and just wanting to kind of have a library of resources. So I would like to revive kind of to get this out there, some kind of final version of it, so it just stops lingering as a thing. So I'm still open to recruiting somebody to help me with kind of compiling this. I have some comments about what these resources or best practice links could be in different areas, like developing local objectives. Things like SMART objectives is kind of a standard. Logic models, best practices, and links to things like that. I have some, so there's like some templates, but just having, if anyone would be willing to volunteer to be the support on this, that would be much appreciated. See the chat, but I don't know. Okay.
Caitlin,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we could include a resource on how to measure data. Because that's one of the things that in looking over the local evaluations, we find that folks have an objective and then they discover that they couldn't get, they weren't able to measure it. So thinking about it and knowing how you're going to measure it at the very beginning will help you. And then you won't get a surprise at the end where you have to report that you couldn't measure this data. So you didn't meet your objective. We want to try to avoid those kinds of things. And I think planning and having a resource where they understand a little more about measurable data will be very helpful.
I have some typos. Okay, yeah, I agree with that. I've done that before with other types of grants where I said I would add a survey comment or like a field in a survey, and then come to find it never got built into the survey, and then you have to get creative about comparable measures. So yeah, I think that's good, helpful. I mean, smart objectives that hopefully guides people to make sure that what they're putting out there is measurable with the M in SMART, but we could lay out some very clear examples, I think, in a library type thing in here. Thank you, Vic.
Mhm. Oh, and another thing too is if somebody has a question about their objectives, or any question about their local evaluation, you can always shoot an email to either Ron or Rusty, because that's in their contract to provide, grantee support. So they will answer you. And their response might be very helpful as you're putting your objective into place.
I think that can go out in the notes then to a call to request for support on the committee guide. And if not, I think I have some help or helpful resources in Iowa After School Alliance too, if maybe there's some resources or best practices already kind of banked in the world of the After School Alliance too. That could be helpful. Okay, I think that's all I had for a form of an agenda today, unless there's any other questions or troubleshooting that we would want to open up for discussion. Or Vic, if you have anything. I don't even know if I'm sharing my screen anymore, to be honest with you all.
Well, I think you're almost done, Caitlin,
Okay.
with that guide. It looks,
Yeah.
very good. So I think just a little bit of polishing and it'll be ready.
Yeah, it's just been lingering out there for quite a while. I don't know Heidi or anyone else who knows a little bit more about what the other committees are doing. Because that's always helpful to kind of touch base with the rest of the network. This guide was an idea that came for a lot of the committees, so I don't know how progress has looked for others, but.
Well, I'll tell you that this committee is ahead of the others with regard to the guide. In
I don't hear that
fact,
often. That's helpful to hear.
our family engagement committee will be using this as definitely a template for their work. So you really should be very proud of the work that you've done on the guide. I think it looks terrific. I agree with Vic. A little bit more spit and polish, and nice job.
Great to hear. So thank you for sharing that.
I also might suggest going forward, once we get this ready to present and ready to go, what if each section, you know how school boards review different sections of their policy board in different months? If we looked at this on an ongoing basis, the section on local evaluations while we're reviewing, and just updated each of those individual sections, I think it would make it smaller tasks going forward, and then a section of it gets reviewed. I mean, the whole thing gets reviewed every year.
Yeah, and those would be good call to actions for the committee to be working and providing input. I agree with that. That's awesome. And of course, the idea would never for it to just, I don't know, live on a shelf or just never to be touched again. So that gives it some energy and liveliness to make sure it's actually being helpful. Love that. Thanks.
Yeah, that means it's being looked at every month. That's,
Yeah.
that's really smart.
Perfect. Okay, I am out of content. So thank you all for joining today, and we'll convene again in April 4th.
Yeah, I just want to share, I've been sharing this with every group. I don't know if anyone on this call is familiar with the Million Girls Moonshot through STEM Next. You're probably not nodding. If you are, if not, you should check it out. It's really cool. But we have some really exciting news. A young woman from Iowa was chosen to be on the flight crew cohort this year. And
Wow.
her name is Aria. I haven't met her yet. I just have reached out, but it's just super exciting that we've got a gal from Iowa. So be watching for information on her.
That is awesome. Thanks for sharing, Heidi.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and stop the recording for you, Caitlin.